When priests put no difference between clean and unclean. This class is for those that are struggling with the dietary laws and the laws in general, but especially the dietary laws and what's clean and what's unclean, and was that done away with. So we're going to go straight to the scripts, and we're going to bring out the truth. So before we start, let's start with the book of John, chapter 8 and verse 32. The book of John, chapter 8 and verse 32. And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. So we're going to find out the truth today as far as the dietary laws and are they done away with. So let's get the book of Romans, chapter 15. Because the scripts was written for our learning. Everything in here, nothing has changed. The Most High changed not. So let's get that understanding. The book of Romans, chapter 15 and verse 4. For whatsoever things were written aforetime were written for our learning, that we through patience and comfort of the scriptures might have hope. So we're going to start right into the laws. Let's get the book of Leviticus. The book of Leviticus and chapter 11. Let's go to chapter 11, the book of Leviticus. I'm going to start at verse 1. The book of Leviticus, chapter 11 and verse 1. And the Lord spake unto Moses and to Aaron, saying unto them, Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, These are the beasts which ye shall eat among all the beasts that are on the earth. Whatsoever parteth the hoof, and is cloven-footed, and cheweth the cud, among the beasts that shall ye eat. So, let's break this down. It says, These are the beasts which ye shall eat among all the beasts that are on the earth. Whatsoever part of the hoof. So a deer has a parted hoof. Okay? A cow has a parted hoof. But it doesn't stop there. It says, also cloven-footed, and cheweth the cud. Well, cheweth the cud means that that animal has two stomachs. When he eats the food, eat the grass, when he eats the grass, he chews up the grass. It goes into one stomach. He regurgitate that and then eat it again, and it goes into another stomach. So it's basically like a purification type chambers within the animal. Same as we purify water. We take it, take regular tap water, and you boil it, and that's how you purify it. So the animal is purifying the food because we are what we eat. So if the animal is eating his food and then regurgitates that and put it into another chamber, that way we are getting food that is nourishment for our bodies. Okay? Verse 4. Nevertheless, these shall ye not eat of them that cheweth the cud, or of them that divideth the hoof, as the camel, because he cheweth the cud, but divided not the hoof, he is unclean to you. So now the Most High is giving you an example of an animal that do chew the cud, but it doesn't have cloven. It doesn't divide the hoof. So being that the camel toes don't divide the hoof, like it says once again, cheweth the cud, or of them that divided the hoof, as the camel. So my mistake. The camel divided the hoof and chewed the cud, right? But divided not the hoof, he is unclean unto you. And the coney is like a deer, similar to a deer, because he chewed the cud, but divided not the hoof, he is unclean to you. And the hare, because he chewed the cud, but divided not the hoof, he is unclean to you. So the Most High giving us all these examples of what's clean and what's not clean. Okay, so now we know about dividing the hoof, what chewing the cud is, and now we're going to get into this particular animal. Verse 7. And the swine is the pig, pork. And the swine, though he divided the hoof, and he be cloven-footed, yet he cheweth not the cud. He is unclean to you. Of their flesh shall ye not eat, and their carcass shall ye not touch. They are unclean to you. That's plain and simple. But somewhere down the line, when Christ came, everybody think that this law is done away with. They think all the laws are done away with. But they're not. Matter of fact, what puzzles me the most is how in Christianity they search the scriptures to try to revert away from the laws of the Most High. They want to serve the Lord, but don't want to keep none of the laws. They don't want to keep any of the laws. They just want to serve the Lord and
all participants are muted.
Don't want
to unmute themselves.
Don't want to keep any of the laws. Okay? So verse 7 says, and the swine, though he divided the hoof, and be cloven-footed, yet he cheweth not the cud. Because pork, pig, eat anything. Even them, they're cannibalistic as well, and they eat their own excrement. He is unclean to you. So you eat this, whatever tapeworms or whatever the case may be inside of that pig is going to be inside of you. Of their flesh shall ye not eat. That's a commandment. And their carcass shall ye not touch. That's a commandment. They are unclean to you. That is a commandment. So now let's jump down to verse 9. These shall ye eat of all that are in the waters, whatsoever have fins and scales. In the waters, in the seas, and in the rivers, them shall ye eat. So, that means this animal has to have fins and scales for you to be able to eat it. If it got just fins and no scales, like a catfish, you can't eat it. If it got scales and no fins, you can't eat it. You can't eat shrimp. You cannot eat lobster. You cannot eat clams, oysters, octopus. None of that. Can't eat it. Can't eat it at all. So now we went a little bit into the law. Now you got to understand something about the scriptures. If the Most High deems something important, you find it in the scriptures more than one time. So now we're reading in the book of Leviticus about the dietary laws of what you can eat and what you can't eat. Now, we go to the book of Deuteronomy. He repeating the same thing. Precept must be upon precept. But why is that? Well, obviously, there was a problem. And the problem was when we came out of Egypt, we was eating whatever they was eating. They was eating unclean things. These are the reasons why the Most High gave us the laws. For us not to do after the Egyptians. So you go to the book of Deuteronomy chapter 14. What does it say? Once again, verse 1. The book of Deuteronomy chapter 14 and verse 1. Ye are the children of the Lord, your God. Ye shall not cut yourselves, nor make any baldness between your eyes for the dead. For thou art a holy people unto the Lord thy God, and the Lord hath chosen thee to be a peculiar people unto himself above all the nations that are upon the earth. Above all the nations that are upon the earth. Thou shalt not eat any abominable thing. That's plain and simple. Thou shalt not eat any abominable thing. These are the beasts which ye shall eat, the ox, the sheep, and the goat, the hart, the roebuck, and the fallow deer, and the wild goat. The Lord is just giving us all these different animals that we can eat. Then we go down, he's telling us what birds we can eat. But once again, we go to verse 7 in the book of Deuteronomy chapter 14. And his scripture says, nevertheless, these ye shall not eat of them that chewed the cud, or of them that divided the hoof, the cloven hoof, as the camel, as the hare, as the coney. For they cheweth the cud, but divided not the hoof. Therefore they are unclean to you, unto you. Then once again, verse 8, and the swine, because it divided the hoof, yet cheweth not the cud, it is unclean to you. Ye shall not eat of their flesh, nor touch their dead carcass. These ye shall eat, all that are in the waters, all that have fins and scales, ye shall eat. I mean, that's simple. That's simple. So now let's get where the problem comes in at. The problem comes in Christianity when they teach you that everything is received in Thanksgiving. And we're going to get into this scripture later, and we're going to break it down. So let's go to Leviticus, the book of Leviticus, chapter 20. The book of Leviticus, chapter 20, and I'm going to start at verse 24. But I have said unto you, ye shall inherit the land, and I will give it unto you to possess it, a land that floweth with milk and honey. I am the Lord your God, which have separated you from other people. Ye shall therefore put difference between clean beasts and unclean, and between unclean fowl and clean. And ye shall not make your souls abominable by beasts or by fowl, or by any manner of living thing that creepeth on the ground, which I have separated from you as unclean. That's a commandment. That's a commandment. That's telling you that these laws never change. When the Messiah was on the earth, what did he do? He taught the Old Testament. It was no New Testament. Christ didn't just crucified on the cross, then all of a sudden there's no longer we got to keep these dietary laws. We got to keep any laws. We got to keep all the laws. So the Lord said he separated us from the other people. He said that we shall not put a difference between clean beasts and unclean beasts. He never changed that. So where are these people getting this from? Let's go to the book of Leviticus chapter 10. The book of Leviticus chapter 10. And I'm going to start at verse 10. And that ye may put a difference between holy and unholy. Holy is set apart. And between clean and unclean. And that ye may teach the children of Israel all the statutes which the Lord has spoken unto them by the hand of Moses. I mean, how much more instruction do you need to understand this is what the Most High want us to do? These laws, like we read in the beginning, when the scripture says in Romans 15:4, whatsoever things were written aforetime was written for our learning. So it doesn't mean that we're supposed to disregard everything in the Old Testament, because that's what Christ taught. Everything in the Old Testament. So let's go and get into what we're being taught in these churches and what we got to do to help our people come out of this stronghold. Because some people, believe it or not, I've ran into Israelites that they haven't repented, but they won't do away with that pork, the shrimp, the lobster. They won't do away with it. Why would you let something like that keep you from getting the kingdom? But in their minds, they see it like, oh, that's just a light thing. That's not going to bother, keep me from getting in the kingdom. It's a sin. And we all know, no matter how big the sin or how little the sin, all sin, the wages of sin is death. So yes, you will be put to death for eating shrimp. Something as small as that. Let's go to the book of Ezekiel, chapter 22. The book of Ezekiel, chapter 22, and I'm going to start at verse 26. Her priests, the her that is in reference here is Israel. Her priests have violated my law and have profaned my holy things. They have put no difference between the holy and the profane. Neither have they showed difference between the unclean and the clean, and have hid their eyes from my Sabbath, and I am profane among them. You know how you profane the Most High? Don't keep his laws. You know how you profane the Most High? Eating unclean things. Not keeping the Sabbath. All of these things that he put in place, they're not put in place to hurt us. Like the scriptures say, the laws are not grievous. They're not hard. So it should be no reason why we don't keep them. It's no reason. He said the priests, this is what's being taught in the churches today. Right? The priests say that we can eat whatever we want to eat, right? That's what the priests say. But we're going to see what the Bible say. The priests be buying and selling on what they call the Sabbath day, which they say Sunday, which is the first day of the week, even if you thought that was the Sabbath day, you still in there buying and selling and cooking pork and all of that kind of stuff like that. Collard greens and with pork flavor, all that crap that they in the church is doing. I went to a church one time and they had a crab outing, a crab thing where they go out and the church as a whole go get on a bus and go to Maryland and get bushels of crab. Where they do that at? The scriptures just tell you what not to do, but yet you're going to go against it. Well, we're going to find out today. We're going to find out today if that to be true. Or is something happened? So let's go to the book of Malachi chapter 3. Because I know the Most High, He never changes. The book of Malachi chapter 3 and verse 6. For I am the Lord, I change not. Therefore ye sons of Jacob are not consumed. Simple as that. So that we're not consumed, the Most High don't change. He don't. Even when He gave us a new covenant, He didn't change. Only thing that was done away with was the laws of sacrifice. That's it. And then it explains to you in the book of Hebrews why. Because the sacrifice of animals never did cleanse us. So Christ, the Messiah, is what cleansed us, sanctified us to be able to come on to the Most High. But in no way, shape, fashion, or form does that mean that you can eat pork. So we're going to get the understanding. Really, we're going to go into deep detail about this, especially eating of the swine. Let's go to Isaiah chapter 65. And it's not going to be a long class, but this is just something that needs to be addressed, and needs to be addressed in a way where precept upon precept, and let you see what our people did, the history of what our people did when they was confronted with this. And it may be to inspire you or inspire others to do the same thing, to see how serious this was to our forefathers and how serious it should be to us. So the book of Isaiah, chapter 65. And I'm going to get verses, start at verse 1. I am sought of them that ask not for me. This is the Most High speaking. I am found of them that sought me not. I said, behold me unto a nation that was not called by my name. I have spread out my hands all the day unto a rebellious people, which walketh in a way that was not good, after their own thoughts. Your own thoughts is, I could eat this, I could eat that, I could do this, I could wear this, I could do that. A people that provoketh me to anger continually to my face, that sacrifice in gardens and burning incense upon the altars of bricks, which remaineth among the graves and lodge in the monuments, which eat swine's flesh and broth, and abominable things is in their vessels. Abominable things is in their vessels, in your plates, in your cups. The Most High called it out in verse 4, which remain among the graves and the lodge in the monuments, which eat swine's flesh and broth, of abominable things is in their vessels. The Most High ain't playing about this thing. He told us, don't eat of the swine. Don't touch it, the dead carcass of a pig. Don't do it. Don't do it. So let's get the history of what happened to our people and what they did. So let's go to the book of the Maccabees. Now I'm doing something here because I wanted to show you the laws in the Old Testament. All right. Under the Persian and the Mede Empire, under the Egyptian, the things that we were forced to do. The Most High, we came out of Egypt. The Most High gave us laws. We didn't keep the laws. Most High put people over us. The Persian and the Medes. Now we're ready to go into the Greek captivity and see what happened. So let's go to the first Maccabees. The book of First Maccabees in the Apocrypha. And I'm going to start at chapter 1. And I'm going to start at verse 41. The book of First Maccabees, chapter 1 and verse 41. Moreover, King Antiochus wrote to his whole kingdom that all should be one people. So this is what Antiochus, he came up out of those four generals that belonged to Alexander. He was the wicked root that you read about in the Maccabees, and also that you read about in Daniel's chapter 9 and Daniel's chapter 8. Okay. So moreover, King Antiochus wrote to his whole kingdom that all should be one people, and everyone should leave his law. So everyone should leave the law. So all the heathen agreed according to the commandment of the king. Yea, many also of the Israelites consented to his religion, and sacrificed unto idols, and profaned the Sabbath. This is why we're eating pork today. This is why we don't keep the Sabbath day. It was at this point where it changed. Verse 44. For the king has sent out letters by messengers unto Jerusalem and the cities of Judah, that they should follow the strange laws of the land, and forbid burnt offerings, and sacrifice, and drink offerings in the temple, and that they should profane the Sabbath and festival days. Verse 45, I want you to remember that, because in the New Testament, something came out in the church of the Colossians. It was because of this right here that we read in verse 45 is why what's in Colossians when we get there, so that you have an understanding. So just keep that in mind. Verse 45, and forbid burnt offerings and sacrifices and drink offerings in the temple, that they should profane the Sabbath and festival days. Verse 46, and pollute the sanctuary and the holy people, and set up altars and groves and chapels of idols, and sacrifice swine's flesh and unclean beasts. Once again, where we would sacrifice lambs or goats or even a cow or turtle doves or whatever the case may be before the Lord, and forgiveness of sin. This man, Antiochus Epiphanes, is what made us sacrifice swine's flesh in the Most High temple. You just heard the Most High said in the book of Isaiah, in chapter 65. Now, this is what we are doing. So verse 48, that they should also leave their children uncircumcised and make their souls abominable with all manner of uncleanliness. This is what happened. These are the things that we were faced up against. And what happened is you practice these things over time. Eventually, you're going to forget your customs. You're going to forget your ways. You're going to forget what you're supposed to do or what you used to do. You're not going to be able to keep those things no more. But listen to verse 49. To the end they might forget the law. Like I said, because that's what happened. To the end they might forget the law and change all the ordinances. And whosoever would not do according to the commandment of the king, he said he should die. So what happened? Our people was put to death for not keeping the king's laws. He made us eat swine's flesh. He made us sacrifice. He changed our Sabbath day from the seventh day, which is Saturday, to Sunday. Everything for us to get further and further away from the Most High. And here the churches are teaching us the same thing. And did they ever think for 1 minute, wait a minute, how is it going to hurt me if I just do what the Lord say do? How is it going to hurt me? It's not. It's not going to hurt you. So with that, let's jump over to 2 Maccabees chapter 6. Second Maccabees chapter 6, and I want verse 18. Eleazar,